First, there was the Nothing Phone 2, and then came the Nothing Phone 2A. But now, there's the Nothing Phone 2A Plus. But why? Well, let's find out what's good and not good about this 1,999 ringgit or 460 USD smartphone, and how is it better compared to the previous Nothing Phone 2A. Now, starting from the unboxing, the box comes in a box similar to the original Nothing Phone 2A with the visuals of the phone's camera in front and the specs and the variant at the back of the box. Inside, there's a white USB-C to USB-C cable, a SIM ejector tool, and some paperwork. Okay, when it comes to the overall design and build quality, if you're already familiar with the Nothing Phone 2A, then the 2A Plus will feel very familiar too. It follows a similar design language as its elder brother. You'll also find a similar distinctive camera bump with 3 glyph interface lights positioned around the camera. Now, what's great is that the phone still keeps the very nice transparent kind of design at the back, very unique in the market. Now, this time, instead of a smoky, translucent back of the 2A, there's a fully transparent plastic back instead, where this allows you to clearly see the NFC coil, the screws, and the glyph interface, which does add a nice touch to the overall look. Then Nothing has also added a more metallic finish to enhance the premium feel of the design, and with the clearer transparency, it's even more noticeable. Now, this particular variant is the grey color variant, where the light grey contrasts very well with the silver colored coils. Now, the volume buttons are on the left and the power button is on the right. So if you're used to an Android smartphone which has volume rockers on the right hand side, this new setup might take a little time for you to get used to. Then the phone also has a matte finish around the sides. Now, although Nothing hasn't specified the type of the material used at the sides, but if it's similar to the 2A, then it could be likely be aluminium. Now, overall, it does feel comfortable in the hands as the Nothing Phone 2A, thanks to the pillow curve designs at the back of each of the sides. Finally, the phone has an IP54 resistant rating, which means that it can handle light water splashes. Now, to keep it simple, the display over here is the exact same one as you see on the Nothing Phone 2A. So if you've seen that one, you'll be getting exactly what you see over here. But just to recap, this phone comes with a 6.7-inch AMOLED display with a resolution of 1084 by 2412 and supports HDR10+ and 10-bit colors. It also features the Corning Gorilla Glass 5, which, as my fellow tech YouTuber Jerry Rigs Everything, or Zach, would say, scratches at level 6 with deeper grooves at level 7. Then there's also a 120Hz refresh rate and a maximum touch sample rate of 240Hz, making scrolling super smooth. Now, by default, it is set to 60Hz, but you can switch it up to high or the 120Hz in the display settings, or you can choose the dynamic mode, which help to automatically adjust and help conserve the battery life, and more on my battery life test later. Now, while all of this sounds great on paper, but I found that it did not live up to its claims in certain areas, and there are also some display issues that can be really frustrating, and I will go into that in a minute as well. Now, I've seen some online suggesting that the display is brighter than the original 2As, which was interesting because both phones has the same exact display with the same 1300 nits of peak brightness, and having used both, I personally don't see any differences over here. Now, if you love watching movies on your phone, what's great is that this phone does come with Widevine L1 certification for Netflix. And speaking of Netflix, have you watched the new Terminator Zero show? Syed from our team says that it's very good, but let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. So yes, overall the colors are nicely saturated and punchy, and the blacks are deep and rich. Combined with the great stereo speakers, it makes for an excellent device for watching videos. Now, it also has an under-display fingerprint sensor, and while it may not be the ultrasonic types like the flagship phones, this optical one was still pretty fast and accurate, and you can even register up to 5 fingerprints over here. So usually I wouldn't have a dedicated topic on sound in my smartphone reviews, but as mentioned earlier, the phone has a serious loud set of stereo speakers when watching videos and movies especially. The sound output was so impressive that it's easy for me to make out the dialogue and also pinpoint even subtle noises of a video or even gaming. But listening to music, however, is a slightly different story because yes, they are loud, but because the speakers are mostly all on the highest volume, the instruments can get a little drowned too. But yes, considering a phone within this price range, the speakers are really good, even compared to some flagship smartphones as well. Now, as for the phone's camera setup, similar. Once again, it is the same as the 2A, where it has a dual camera setup with a 50 megapixel main sensor and a second 50 megapixel ultra-wide lens. However, Nothing has included a big bigger selfie camera, which is a 50 megapixel selfie compared to the previous 32 megapixels. And what's extra lovely is the fact that it can shoot up to 4K 30 FPS for the front camera instead of just 1080p on the Nothing Phone 2A. So the ultra-wide lenses by itself look very nice. It has an extra tint of saturation and the edges were not distorted, so overall it looked great. As for the main lenses by itself, once again it looked great, but there is quite a difference in saturation if you compare the ultra-wide image at the same scene of the main lenses as seen over here. Other than that, the quality was as great as seen in these photos. The 50mm zoom photo was also really nice, and you can go up to 10 times zoom, which I wouldn't recommend as there is a significant loss of quality. Then portrait mode for humans was great for the age detection and the subject to background blur, where there is a 2 times mode over in the camera app on this portrait mode as well. Then you also did decent on subjects too and pets as well, especially for a phone which does not have a dedicated telephoto lens. Then yes, the selfie photos was indeed a huge improvement with amazing quality and dynamic range as seen in this regular selfie mode, and the portrait selfie photos was truly amazing as well. The nighttime ultra-wide photos were nice too, performing well on the darker areas of the images and balancing the highlights well. The skies on the main lenses was brighter than how it was in real life, but it does seem that the image processing played a huge role over here. But overall it was great up to 2 times, but definitely not great at 10 times zoom. Nighttime portrait photos of humans performed great as the daytime shots, which was really nice to know. Now I did turn on the glyph lights during this particular mode and there was no differences at all. So I went to an area with lesser light and took a photo of myself using the rear cameras like this, and yes, there is a difference because the glyph light provided an extra light, hence the pictures were less blurry as seen in this comparison photo side by side when zoomed into my face. So yes, this does come in handy if you really need that extra bit of light. Now as for video, I was really blown away by the video quality on the phone as the ultra-wide lenses, the main lenses and even up to 2 times zoom look nice as seen in this video samples. Stabilization wise, the ultra-wide lenses look like a flagship quality stabilization, but the stabilization on the main lens was just decent, where the 2 times zoom video looked stable through the viewfinder or looking it through the phone, but it was quite a weird situation as you can see over here. Then of course the real hero for video was the front camera as it can record up to 4K 30 FPS. And yes, as you can see, the quality was amazing and the stabilization was definitely one of the best. Very flagship level indeed. At night, the ultra-wide rear lenses look as great as the images, but of course the main lenses performed really good too, and the 2 times video was decent as well. Image stabilization wise, there is some jitters as seen in the ultra-wide lenses, but just a bit lesser on the main lens when it comes to video stabilization. Once again, through the phone, the 2 times zoom video looked very nice and stable when I was looking it through the phone. But as mentioned in post, as seen over here, it had some very peculiar way of trying to make the overall video stabilized. And here's a vlogging test for you to hear how the audio recording sounds like, so you can be the judge. You know what, since the video quality is really good even at night for the front camera, I decided to do my vlogging test at night instead of doing it typically during the day. I'm at the side of the road, so it's pretty noisy, so let's see how or hear how the overall audio sounds. Test 1 2. Test 1 2, test 1 2. Let me know what you think. So what do you think of the camera quality? Let me know in the comment section below, and if you guys are enjoying these camera samples and this whole video so far, a nice big thumbs up would be very much appreciated for YouTube to say, yay, this is a good video. And a subscription would be lovely too in case you haven't. Thank you very much in advance. Now let's move on to gaming, because the chipset on this phone has seen a bit of an upgrade. It comes with a MediaTek Dimensity 7350 Pro, which is indeed more powerful than the 2A's Dimensity 7200 Pro. Now nothing claims that this phone is about 10% more powerful than the previous model and is designed for gamers and multitaskers in mind. But that all aside, all the things mentioned, I have to say that in terms of the gaming performance, the phone pretty much lives up to those claims as it handled everything that I threw in it quite well. I tested out games like COD Mobile and Pokemon Go and both ran smoothly. Now sure, these are not the most demanding games, but the phone managed to handle them almost flawlessly at 120Hz with mid to high level of graphic settings. Heat also wasn't an issue either. Even without an air-conditioned room, the phone stayed cool throughout. The phone even ran on Genshin Impact at medium settings with smooth frame rates. After about 80 minutes of gameplay, it did get a little warm but nothing very constantly hot. Now while the gaming performance on this was quite solid, I have to admit that I wasn't having the most enjoyable experience. In fact, I have to say that it was really frustrating. Now, remember when I mentioned about the issues with the display earlier? Well, I've encountered significant problems with the display responsiveness that affected my gaming experience, and these issues did lead to mispresses and unregistered swipes, which threw me off my overall gameplay. Now, hopefully nothing can address this with a software update or something, but what's interesting is that this particular mispresses was a similar case when I was reviewing the Oppo Reno 12 Pro few months back, which makes me wonder whether or not these two phones are sourcing the same screens from the same supplier. Now, battery on this phone is still the same at 5000 milliamps, but the charging speed has seen an upgrade where it now supports up to 50 watts of fast charging from 45 watts on the Nothing Phone 2A. It also has 5 watts of reverse wire charging and no wireless charging over here since it has a plastic back. Now, Nothing claims that the phone can last up to 2 days on a single full charge, and I of course did not quite reach that mark, but the battery life on this, especially the screen on time, was really impressive. Where on average, I was very pleased with the screen on time, which got me around 6 hours and 17 minutes when I was at 10% battery, and that is with the screen refresh rate forced to 120Hz, not the dynamic option, and the HDR display settings has also been turned on since I was using this more for watching videos, movies, scrolling to social media and gaming as well. So yes, overall, it was a very good battery life that I got on this Nothing Phone 2A Plus. Now, the software on this phone runs on the Nothing OS version 2.6, and their user interface is based on Android 14. Now, what's good is that it does promises up to 3 major software updates, which I'm definitely thankful for, and I'm sure it will for you too. Now, as usual, the overall software experience for me has been great. And this is because I do appreciate the uniqueness of the Nothing OS, but if you're someone who might get bored easily with the monochrome aesthetics, you might start to feel that it is a bit dull, but not for me. And of course, you can always customize it to your liking since it is Android after all. However, I do wish that this unique look does bring forward towards every single icon. Like for example, apps like Call of Duty, Genshin Impact and even Netflix are using their own icons instead of Nothing's minimalist style by default. And of course, Nothing OS offers a great range of custom widgets from different clocks to compasses, and is all in line with the overall design language. Now, I also had some fun playing around with the glyph interface settings, especially the composer feature, which lets you create your own custom 10-second ringtones, which took me back to my old days of using Nokia and Sony Ericsson phones. I had an Ericsson phone, but I don't think it had such customization. But yes, I can create my own special ringtones with this. And then I had one minor nitpick, which is the lack of a dedicated gallery app, because currently it defaults at Google Photos instead. Because personally, I prefer to have a separate gallery app so I can choose which albums to back up on Google Photos, because you know how Google is always out there to make you pay for more. So this does not give me such options. And speaking of backing up photos, the phone comes with 12GB of RAM with 256GB of storage, and of course by now there's no such thing, or almost completely no such thing, of micro SD card support for smartphones, so 256GB is all you have, so keep that in mind. Now, if you want a recap of everything said in this video and you want a written version of this whole review, you can check it out at our website at www.adamlobo.tv. Links to that will be down below. So in conclusion, this Nothing Phone 2A Plus, in my opinion, is a bit of a tricky one to recommend. On one hand, it does come with a better processor, an improved selfie camera and faster charging as well. But on the other hand, those upgrades are relatively minor compared to what the Nothing Phone 2A already offers. Now, if you're thinking of upgrading from an older smartphone, then yes, I would say that this is a solid choice. It has a great display, some of the loudest speakers on the smartphone, and a very great software experience, especially if you never used the Nothing Phone before. However, if you're already using the Nothing Phone 2A or another phone with similar specs, then you might want to hold on for a bit. And while 1,999 ringgit or $460 price is okay, but given that it's mostly an incremental upgrade over the 2A, and considering the issues I mentioned earlier, like the display and maybe hopefully no other issues after that, a price around 1,899 ringgit or $430 would have felt more reasonable. But do check out my review of the Nothing Phone 2A over here if you haven't seen it.